Hola a todo el mundo y bienvenido a mi canal. Yo me llamo Cine. Soy una abogada afro-latina licenciada practicando la ley criminal, pero como todos ustedes, a mí me fascina cuando estamos hablando de casos de crímenes reales. En este video vamos a hablar del caso de Shanquella Robinson. Si quieres ver un video en español, nada más dime allá abajo. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Daejhanae. I'm a licensed and practicing Afro-Latina criminal attorney who, much like the rest of you, has a severe fascination with true crime cases. Listen, the case we're going to talk about today remains unresolved. This is a case that happened a number of years ago now, but it still brings sadness to my heart when I think about it. This is a case of pure evil, jealousy, maliciousness, false friendships, just pure, dirty, rotten scumbags. Say her name with me. This is the case of Shanquella Robinson. Shanquella Robinson was born on January 9th of 1997 in Charlotte, North Carolina, to her parents Salamondra and Bernard Robinson. Shanquella was absolutely brilliant. Do you hear me? As she graduated from Winston-Salem State University, which is also located in North Carolina, and it's also an HBCU. Because Shanquella was so brilliant, she quickly became an entrepreneur, having her hand in multiple different areas of business to include hair and beauty. She had two businesses specifically, entitled Exquisite Boutique and Exquisite Kids. On Friday, October 28th of 2022, Shanquella traveled to Cabo, San Lucas, Mexico with a group of 6 friends. The group of 6 was composed of 3 men and 3 women, and their names are as follows: Khalil Cook, Malik St. Patrick Dyer, Winter Essence Donovan, Elise Michelle Hyatt, Daejhanae Jackson, and Nasir Wiggins. Although I wasn't able to find Shanquella's exact relationship to all of these bums, these brokies, these losers, and these lames, I was able to find that Khalil Cook was Shanquella's best friend for over 5 years. Collectively, the group of these 6 miscreants became known as the Cabo Six. Shanquella and these vagabonds stayed at a private villa that was located in Cabo San Lucas. As you can see here by their check-in sheet, all 7 of them, to include Shanquella, so the 6 of them and Shanquella included, checked in, provided their phone numbers, and mentioned that their stay was going to be from Friday, October 28th of 2022 to Sunday, October 30th of 2022. Quick side note here. I'm not a huge conspiracy theorist, but I find it rather odd that a group of 7 individuals decided to spend their hard-earned cash to go to Cabo and travel there and stay in a really expensive villa, only to be there for 3 days. Listen, you guys don't know much about me because we're getting to know each other through my videos, but I will say this and insert my own personal experiences here. I travel by myself internationally all the time, but I think the difference for me and what they did here is that, one, if I were to do a short weekend trip, it wouldn't be to Cabo. Cabo's really expensive. I'd probably go to Cancun, Puerto Vallarta, algo así. But they went to Cabo. That's just interesting. And 2, I travel alone. Bringing 7 individuals and coordinating 7 schedules to be somewhere for such a short period of time seems odd to me. And you know what else seems odd? The fact that they left right before Halloween. When you're an adult, Halloween is just an excuse to get drunk and party. Let's be honest. Why wouldn't you want to do that in Cabo? You'll see how my opinions might make sense later on in the story. Less than 24 full hours after their arrival, and on October 29th of 2022, around 2:13 p.m., Shanquella's mother received a call from one of the people that was traveling with Shanquella to let her know that a doctor was en route because Shanquella had fallen ill.
Not even 24 hours after her daughter landed in paradise, Salamondra says she got a worrying call from one of the friends who told her Shanquella wasn't feeling well.
And I said, well, what's wrong with it? And he said, alcohol poisoning. I didn't know what alcohol poisoning was, you know. But he said, the doctor is on the way. And I said, well, how you know alcohol poisoning if the doctor haven't arrived yet?
Of course, Salamondra had numerous questions like, what do you mean ill? What's going on? What's happening to my child? To which they responded that the group had just drunk a little too much, and Shanquella had fallen ill from doing exactly that. Within 1 hour after that call to Shanquella's mother, Dr. Karolina Beatriz Ornelas-Gutierrez responded from the American Medical Center to the villa to see what was happening with Shanquella. Dr. Ornelas-Gutierrez said that Shanquella was in stable condition, but dehydrated, a bit unresponsive, appearing to be intoxicated, and unable to communicate. Further, Dr. Ornelas-Gutierrez stated that Shanquella's companions had told her that Shanquella had drank just a bit too much. When Dr. Ornelas-Gutierrez urged for Shanquella to be rushed to the hospital, the bums that she was traveling with told her no. And again, just inserting my opinion where you didn't ask for it. But I take huge issue with this. As far as I'm aware, none of these broke bums had any relation to Shanquella. And at the time of this incident, she was 25 years old. So she wasn't a minor and she wasn't a kid. That being said, if you, in your medical and professional opinion, think that someone needs to be rushed to the hospital to be diagnosed further, why would you listen to some unlicensed, undegreed, unmedically trained bums? Why would you do that? But nevertheless, that's exactly what she did. During medical treatment, Dr. Ornelas-Gutierrez tried to administer an IV drip to Shanquella, but her condition worsened, and around 4:13 p.m., she suffered a tonic-clonic seizure. Before we talk about what a tonic-clonic seizure is, just pay attention to the fact that I said she suffered the seizure about 4:13 p.m. What did I say previously? That the doctor arrived around 2:13 p.m. So here we are, 2 hours after you see this beautiful, sweet baby laid out on the floor in a villa, and you decide to listen to these randoms and provide medical care inside of a villa. A tonic-clonic seizure, also known as a grand mal seizure, is defined as a seizure that involves loss of consciousness and includes violent muscle contractions. These seizures have 2 stages: loss of consciousness, which occurs first and lasts about 10 to 20 seconds, and then muscle convulsions that usually last less than 2 minutes. After this failed medical treatment, and after Shanquella had difficulty breathing, and after she had suffered the seizure, an ambulance was finally called out there around 4:20 p.m., which was 7 minutes after she suffered from that seizure. Do you know what I find extraordinarily heart-wrenching? Shortly after the call to the ambulance, Shanquella suffered from a heart attack. The paramedics responded to the scene around 4:49 p.m., which was 30 minutes after they were called, and they found Shanquella unresponsive, and they attempted to resuscitate her. In their efforts, the paramedics administered 14 rounds of cardiac vascular compression, and they also injected 5 doses of adrenaline and 6 electrical discharges from a defibrillator. According to a Mexican police report, after everyone's assistance, Shanquella was pronounced dead at 5:57 p.m. If you have been here long enough, you know that I try really hard to show you guys documents when made publicly available. Although the police report wasn't, some of the details contained within were. So let's talk about them. According to the information that I was able to gather, the first responding officers were named David and Omar, pero para decirlo en inglés, David and Omar. And although their last names weren't publicly made available, they did work for the Los Cabos Municipal Police Department. It's my understanding that these officers responded around 5:25 p.m., so a few minutes before Shanquella was officially pronounced deceased. And they had a conversation with Dr. Ornelas-Gutierrez. In that conversation, the doctor informed the officers that medical assistance was requested because a young woman had ingested too much alcohol. Dr. Ornelas-Gutierrez further told the officers that she was attempting to take Shanquella to the hospital for further treatment, but her companions demanded she be treated in the room. The doctor then further told the officers that while Shanquella was being treated in the room, her condition worsened until she finally passed away. Based on the police report, it was concluded that Shanquella died of a heart attack that was caused from alcohol poisoning. The police report further states that Shanquella passed 2 hours and 45 minutes after the doctor was called to the villa. Further, and most important, the police report stated that there was no observed internal or external injuries to Shanquella. Based on that lackluster police report, the Mexican authorities concluded that there was no clear and convincing evidence that Shanquella was murdered. In case you're wondering what happened to the Cabo Six, this group of upstanding individuals, it's my understanding that those bums decided to take their original flights back out of Cabo and to North Carolina. So they left on October 30th, 2022. And again, inserting an opinion that no one asked me for, but a few thoughts come to my mind at this point. Why would the Mexican authorities just let them leave? You're telling me that within less than 24 hours, you were able to conclude that no foul play took place here? You didn't want to question any of these 6 random bums that she was found in the villa with? You decided to let them go, which now makes it even harder for an investigation to occur into her murder because they're back on U.S. soil. And another bit of conspiracy that, again, you guys didn't ask me for, but I'm providing anyway. Does no one else think it's odd, and again, I said this previously, but that they only intended to stay for 3 days? Because it's very coincidental that this action took place the day after they checked in, so the second day of their trip, and then they were able to leave the very next day. I have no evidence that they planned this. All I'm saying is that this sounds mighty suspicious. On November 5th of 2022, a death certificate was issued based on an autopsy report that was conducted in Mexico. The report was dated November 4th of 2022, and it stated that Shanquella's passing was 15 minutes after she suffered a spinal injury and atlas luxation. Before we discuss what these terms mean, let's talk about what I just told you. The Mexican police report said that there was no signs of internal or external injuries to Shanquella. But then 7 days later, a medical examiner conducts an autopsy that says that she passed 15 minutes after a spinal injury, a severe spinal injury at that. Okay, I'm not a doctor. Y'all know I'm not a doctor. I'm a lawyer. But the spine is on my body, correct? So if my spine is injured, and it's a severe spinal injury, can't that be counted as an internal or an external injury? Now, for all the people who are going to get into my comment section and defend the work that was done here. Oh, well, Desiree, they didn't have an x-ray at the time, blah, 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 blah. How could they tell? All of that. I don't want to hear it. Talk to your mama. What happened here is unacceptable. It is not the professional standard of care that I believe it to be. I could be wrong, but it's just odd to me that even as a trained professional, you couldn't feel someone's spine and see if there was any injury or damage to it. But who am I? Again, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a doctor. An atlas luxation is a dislocation or separation of the skull base from the atlas bone. The atlas bone is the first one in the spinal column. So this autopsy, the one I'm talking about that was conducted in Mexico on November 4th of 2022, it was the first autopsy that was conducted on Shanquella's corpse, and it was made publicly available. So let's go through some of that together. Under the description of external injuries section, doctor states there was direct contusion in the frontal region in the median part of 8 by 4 centimeters with hematoma. Doctor further states there was direct contusion in the left iliac crest with a hematoma 7 by 3 centimeters. The injury happened more than 12 hours before the death. Doctor further states contusion in the right iliac crest with a hematoma 4 by 8 centimeters, and that the injury happened more than 12 hours before death. Doctor further states, there's a contusion in the left hand's anatomic snuff box with a 2 centimeter hematoma. The conclusion states that the type of death was violent. Let's talk about what some of these medical terms mean, however. A contusion is a type of injury commonly known as a bruise, where blood vessels under the skin are damaged, causing blood to leak into surrounding tissues. A hematoma is a localized collection of blood outside of a blood vessel, often apparent as a lump or swelling due to pooling blood. The iliac crest is the curved bony ridge part at the top of the hip bone, which is the largest of the 3 pelvic bones. So, we have the police report on one hand that's saying there's no internal or external injuries at all. Then 7 days later, we have an autopsy that says basically there was a lot of violence and a lot of bruising and a lot of stuff happened to this young woman. And you know what's even more interesting? That merely a few days after that, we get this video.
Quilla, can you at least fight back?
No.
At least something. At least fight back, something.
Get up, bro. Get up.
It's my understanding that this video was released on November 16th of 2022, which would be roughly 2 or 3 weeks after Shanquella's murder. What is publicly known about this video? The person who is assaulting Shanquella is a bum named Daejhanae Jackson. What else do we know or can we opine about this video? Shanquella was alive. So this video had to have been taken either October 28th when they arrived, or at some point in the morning of October 29th. What do we also know about this video? Again, or what can we opine about this video? That someone in the room had to have recorded it. It's my understanding that they were in a villa. But even so, the villa might have had cameras around the outside, the exterior, but nobody gonna have a camera inside your room. So instead of stopping the abuse, these bums stood by with their phones and recorded her getting beaten. One day after the video surfaced, and on November 17th of 2022, a second autopsy was conducted on Shanquella's body, but this time in North Carolina. So there's a lot of information that I wasn't aware of, and let me know if you know down below. There's no argument. But I don't know at what point her body was returned from Mexico to North Carolina. But regardless, the second autopsy was conducted there merely a few weeks later. This autopsy was conducted by Dr. Thomas D. Owens from the Mecklenburg County Medical Examiner's Office. And again, much like the first autopsy, this autopsy was also made publicly available. So let's go through some of it together. Autopsy examination reveals the embalmed body of a young adult female who has undergone prior partial autopsy examination with a sutured frontal scalp incision extending coronally from ear to ear along the hairline. There is also a sutured vertical midline incision extending from the neck to just above the pubis. Further external examination reveals several areas of linear and geographical abrasions on the abdomen, pelvis, legs, and arms, as well as a focal abrasion with bruise and underlying subgaleal hemorrhage on the forehead. Post-mortem blood testing performed in Mexico does not reveal the presence of any commonly abused drugs. Testing for ethanol, in parens drinking alcohol, was reportedly performed but was not listed in the report. The ethanol result was later verbally reported, and in parens, discussion on April 3rd of 2023 with officials in Mexico as negative. Based on the history and autopsy findings, it is my opinion that the cause of death in this case is undetermined. The most significant findings at autopsy are the hematoma of the forehead, the mild cerebral edema, and the hypoxic ischemic brain injury. Let's discuss that. Again, I'm not a doctor, I'm a lawyer, so I'm discussing it with you. But To me, that just sounds inconsistent with everything that everyone in Mexico has ever said. Because what they said was that this young lady had died of alcohol poisoning, but a result that was confirmed to this doctor in North Carolina via phone stated that the ethanol testing was allegedly conducted and the results were negative. So she didn't die of alcohol abuse or alcohol poisoning, right? At some point, following Shanquella's murder, her family hired attorneys Benjamin Crump and Sue-Ann Robinson to represent them. If you don't already know who Benjamin Crump is, he's actually a pretty well-known and pretty well-respected civil rights attorney who has a long list of pretty prominent clients. Those clients include the families of Trayvon Martin, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Mike Brown, Tyree Nichols, and many, many, many more. Although I'm less familiar with Sue-Ann Robinson, I will say a few things. Despite the last name, it's my understanding that there's absolutely no relation between Sue-Ann Robinson and Shanquella and her family. It's also my understanding that Sue-Ann Robinson is very well respected, and she serves as senior counsel at Mr. Crump's firm. On March 13th of 2023, approximately 5 months after Shanquella's murder, Benjamin Crump and Sue-Ann Robinson wrote a letter to President Joe Biden and Secretary of State Anthony J. Blinken. That letter was also made public, and although I won't go through absolutely everything that was contained within, let's talk about some things that are contained there. Dear President Biden and Secretary Blinken, on behalf of the family of Shanquella Robinson, we write to request immediate diplomatic intervention from the United States government in this transnational criminal case. The case involves the death of Shanquella Robinson, a 25-year-old ambitious, bright entrepreneur and American citizen. Shanquella traveled to Cabo San Lucas, Mexico on October 28, 2022, and was reported dead in a luxury villa in Cabo on October 29, 2022. Her 6 travel mates returned to the United States the next day. 3 of the 6 travel mates, Winter Donovan, Khalil Cook, and Daejhanae Jackson, would transport Shanquella's luggage from Mexico to her mother's home in Charlotte, North Carolina. They would give their condolences and inform Mrs. Robinson that Shanquella passed away from alcohol poisoning. On November 16, 2022, one of the travel mates shared video from a cell phone camera around the campus of Winston-Salem University, the college that Shanquella Robinson attended. The video shows Shanquella being beaten in the villa while naked by one of the 6 travel mates, who was identified as Daejhanae Jackson. An autopsy report prepared on October 30th, 2022 in Mexico by medical examiner Dr. René Adalberto Galvano Segura noted that Shanquella's body had a head injury and concluded that Shanquella's cause of death was a broken neck. After the video of the beating of Shanquella Robinson surfaced online, the Attorney General's office in Baja California Sur initiated a criminal investigation. As a result of the investigation, a warrant was issued for Daejhanae Jackson by Mexican law enforcement. Daejhanae was one of the 6 travel mates who fled to the United States after Shanquella was pronounced dead. Ms. Jackson was identified as the perpetrator of femicide against Shanquella Robinson, a homicide based on gender. As you are also, of course, aware, transnational criminal cases can be complex and challenging to resolve, especially when they involve individuals and entities in different countries. We understand each country has sovereignty over its own citizens and that each country has its own legal systems which can create issues. We also understand there is protocol for the resolution of transnational crimes. Despite reaching out to consular authorities, who are tasked with being the family's guide and liaison in cases such as this, we have encountered numerous obstacles in our efforts to receive information for the family on whether those responsible would ever be brought to justice. While on a fact-finding mission on behalf of the family, Attorney Sue Robinson was advised by a member of the United States Consular Corps in Mexico that if the family was seeking information about the case, perhaps the family should reach out to the at-large travel mates. Certainly, this is an unacceptable response to share with an American family in regards to their daughter's murder. Given the nature and the scope of this case, we believe that diplomatic intervention from the U.S. government could help facilitate the necessary cooperation and coordination between the involved parties to ensure that justice is served timely, that the accused are tried under the appropriate legal system, that extradition is possible, and that international cooperation is fostered. That letter was an absolute mouthful, but I think I previously said it in this video. Because the Mexican authorities let these 6 bastards return to the United States, it becomes even harder. It becomes even harder to get justice for Shanquella. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but I am saying that it's difficult. And attorneys Benjamin Crump and Sue Robinson, in their letter to the President of the United States, said the exact same thing. It is really hard when you're dealing with transnational crimes and citizens of different countries, because each country has their own legal system. That being said, I'm still covering this case because it's not impossible, and justice for Shanquella is still at the forefront of many of our minds. On April 12th of 2023, 1 day shy of 1 full month from the letter that was written to the President and the Secretary of State, the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of North Carolina released the following press statement. Federal officials with the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Middle and Western Districts of North Carolina and the FBI met with the family of Ms. Shanquella Robinson and family representatives today to offer their condolences and present the findings of the federal investigation into the death of Ms. Robinson. The investigation into the circumstances surrounding the death of Ms. Robinson has been a priority for federal prosecutors and the FBI. The FBI has worked diligently to conduct a detailed and thorough investigation of the evidence available in this case. In coordination with Ms. Robinson's family, an autopsy was conducted in the United States by the Medical Examiner's Office in Mecklenburg County. As in every case, under consideration for federal prosecution, the government must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that a federal crime was committed. Based on the results of the autopsy, and after a careful deliberation and review of the investigative materials by both U.S. attorneys' offices, federal prosecutors informed Ms. Robinson's family today that the available evidence does not support a federal prosecution. The death of Ms. Robinson has been incredibly difficult for her family and the community. As a matter of policy, federal officials generally do not issue public statements concerning the status of an investigation. However, given the circumstances of Ms. Robinson's death and the public concerns surrounding this investigation, it is important to reassure the public that experienced federal agents and seasoned prosecutors extensively reviewed the available evidence and have concluded that federal charges cannot be pursued. As in any case, the government is prepared to review and examine new information related to the investigation should it become available. Although that statement was disheartening, and I'm sure it's not what Shanquella's family wanted to hear, let me explain to you guys that just based on personal experience, these cases are tough. Understanding that all 6 of these bastards returned to the United States after they committed this crime, or allegedly, because let's give them the benefit, I guess, because I don't want to get sued. All of the activities for the murder of Shanquella occurred in Mexico. If we haven't talked about this already, let's talk about a term called jurisdiction. Mexico is a proper jurisdiction for the prosecution of these bones because the crime occurred in Mexico. I understand that the rest of these bastards have already returned to the United States, but none of the crimes occurred here. The video that was released is of Daejhanae Jackson beating Shanquella in Mexico. Shanquella is also alleged to have been murdered in Mexico. So Mexico would be the proper authority and the proper jurisdiction for these bumps to be charged. Let's talk a little bit more about the arrest warrant that Benjamin Crump and Sue Robinson stated was placed for Daejhanae Jackson out in Mexico. I had been seeing very conflicting reports on whether or not Daejhanae was arrested, and some stated that she was, and others stated that she wasn't. Based on the evidence that I was able to see, or the stuff that I was able to see, I'm going to cautiously say that it is my opinion that she probably was not arrested. Let me explain why. An arrest warrant and an arrest affidavit are different than an actual arrest. In order to get an arrest warrant, the officials in Mexico had to go to an official judge in Mexico and provide an arrest affidavit as to why they believe an arrest warrant should go out for this person. So what that means is there is an arrest warrant for Daejhanae Jackson, and the arrest warrant is still active, and it is still in Mexico, but she's in the US now. Unless Daejhanae returns to Mexico for whatever reason, and unless Mexico decides to request extradition, Daejhanae doesn't get arrested. It's disheartening because justice for Shanquella has been crucially delayed. And in my opinion, just my opinion, based on the actions of Mexican officials, there is no reason that all 6 of these bastards were able to return gleefully back to the United States the day after she was murdered. There is absolutely also no reason, in my opinion, that Mexico has not requested to extradite Daejhanae back to Mexico. This is all disheartening and it's sad, but I'm just explaining to you guys my perspective. As of now, while the criminal investigation is under a halt, Shanquella's family has decided to exercise their options civilly and have filed civil lawsuits against multiple different entities to include the Cabo 6, the FBI, and the State Department. The wrongful death lawsuit against the Cabo 6 was filed in October of 2024, and what's important to note is that Daejhanae Jackson has changed her name to Imani Green, and I'm going to spell it on the screen for you guys because we need to hold these people accountable for what they're alleged to have done at this point. But regardless, she changed her name. It's my understanding that she's proceeding pro se, which means representing herself. So that's what also led me to the conclusion that I don't think she is arrested and in a jail somewhere in Mexico, because she responded with a motion to dismiss, claiming improper venue. The lawsuit against the FBI and the State Department was for $100 million. And just last month, in June of 2025, a federal judge agreed with some of the arguments made by the FBI for dismissal of some of the claims. And so some of the claims within that lawsuit were, in fact, dismissed. I'm not sure of what claims the FBI made to have some of those claims within the lawsuit dismissed, but I will let you know that the federal judge that agreed with the FBI is named Max Cogburn, and the FBI released all of its files about the investigation that they claim to have conducted into Shanquella Robinson's murder. Shanquella's case is one that genuinely almost brings me to tears. This is a case of literally everyone failing Shanquella. Shanquella's friends failed her. It's my opinion that the doctor in Mexico failed her. It's my opinion that the Mexican law enforcement officials that responded to the Avila failed her. It's my opinion that the Mexican coroner failed her. It's my opinion that all of this is a huge failure and an injustice to Shanquella. As a lawyer, I know how tough that transnational cases can be. I've expressed that to you, I've expressed my opinions for that, and I've kind of explained why that is. But with continued coverage and awareness, I'm hopeful that Shanquella will eventually get the justice that she so rightfully deserves. I will do my best to keep up with this case and let you guys know of any updates that arise. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, y'all take care.